You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national financial columnist and financial color commentator. This week on The Biz, our personal performance series. And on today's show, the role of your core irrational beliefs with sports psychologist and performance coach, Dr. Jack Singer.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, and we're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial advisors right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And with me, day 3 in our saga of personal performance, Dr. Jack Singer.
Nice to see you.
You as well, sir. Well, we've been talking all week about things that can help us in our practice and build out our business. But we have to talk about building up ourselves and taking care of things. We have to take care of our own house here first. And I noticed if you're coming into our show on Wednesday, this is our Wednesday show, please, if you haven't seen our Monday, Tuesday show, I highly recommend that you watch Monday and Tuesday in chronology, in succession, to really get what we're really talking about, because we're really building from show to show.
Right.
Now, when we're talking about understanding the role of core irrational beliefs, I have to say, I'm just waiting to figure out how many irrational things are going on in here in my core. And I might have a few peripheral issues that are irrational, but I'm talking about what is support in my life, in my personality, and the personalities of our producers, which are part and parcel of who we are. And is it too late to break up that kind of core belief when you're in your 50s and 60s? Because doesn't your personality become like concrete, or no?
Well, interesting you use the word concrete. It's more porous. It's not concrete, and we can change personality traits. We're not ever going to change our personalities. We are who we are, but we can change traits that are not in our best interest. So we can do that. And you know, people have rational beliefs and they have irrational beliefs, and some of these form the core. It's almost like the studs in the wall of a house. Core beliefs aren't always apparent, but everything else seems to rest on them. So if you have a producer that's doing very well, and that person is not usually thinking about what are my core beliefs. They're just operating with the data in front of them. Here's my quota, here's what I'm doing, here's what I need to do, here's how I need to get more referrals and what have you. But their core beliefs can sometimes sabotage their own behavior and they don't know it. So it's important to sit down and think about what are your core belief systems, and if some of them are negative or unfortunate, what can you do to change them, or what can you say to yourself to change them?
I have a curiosity question. If I have a core belief, give me an example of a core belief that's actually sabotaging me.
Okay. I must be competent in everything I do. In fact, I must be perfect in everything I do, or I consider myself a failure. That would be a negative, self-defeating core belief. And so that if you do one thing and make one mistake, you beat yourself up unmercilessly as if you've committed some kind of a sin. And that will undermine someone, because then if they have this fear of making a mistake in the future, it's like a fear of failure, which now is a motivator, and a negative motivator that's driving you to become intimidated and afraid to try new things because you're afraid of failure. So that core belief was, I have to be competent and successful and perfect, or there's something wrong with me. And you know, people procrastinate in cases like that. For example, I've talked to many producers who procrastinate making cold calls. And why? Because they've assumed in their mind that I'm going to be a failure, and the majority of these cold calls, they're going to hang up on me, or they're not going to get back with me, or they don't want to speak with me. And I can't face that because I consider that a personal failure. And we need to get rid of that kind of thinking. The thinking is irrational.
Well, if I want to move out from my core beliefs that are irrational, I want to keep the ones that are good, but my irrational, and move out from that, what is my exit strategy away from it?
The exit strategy is to recognize what your self-talk is. We talked last year on the segment we did where we used the metaphor of athletes and becoming a champion athlete. And one of the things that we said, Steve, was that your performance, whether you're an athlete or a producer, always equals your talent minus distractions. So if you have 0 distractions, your talent will always show in your performance, whether you're a producer or athlete or what have you. But distractions are these negative, self-defeating thoughts that sometimes get in the way. So the first thing we need to do is recognize when we have these thoughts, and then start doing things to get rid of them and eradicate them, like snapping the rubber band and taking a deep breath and changing your thinking to something more rational.
Well, if I want to, let's say I'm moving away from that now, and I'm looking at that, and I also maybe have a sounding board, a person I can talk to. And a lot of us belong to study groups. Right. They're almost all academic. We're collecting people that are guns in their certain areas, very good expertise, but we really don't have personal relationships.
Right.
We're really not talking about the way we are.
Right.
And I think maybe I'm going to introduce our study group. I don't know if they'll go for it or not, but I think I'd like to introduce some of this to our study group because I think we're too academic and we're only talking about the tax code, the planning strategies. We're not talking about our person in the practice.
Right. What you're doing there is you're talking about safe topics. Safe topics that are superficial, that we can look it up. It's data, it's analytical. What you're not dealing with is feelings, emotions, and fears, which are the things that undermine your performance at any time.
I'm thinking of when I'm looking at how I look at irrational thoughts in my practice and things that are holding me back, and they could be, if I'm hearing you correctly, self-induced, right?
Right.
If I want to start training my head, my thinking, the tributaries of thought, I mean, I'm being invaded by things that have been maybe around for all my life.
Right.
I want to be able to somehow shut that off and start anew. How do I do that?
Well, first you have to understand where your thinking has gone awry. So you need to sit down with someone or a book. I mean, I've written books on this where it shows you where the thinking is irrational or self-defeating, if you will. And there are categories for that, like generalizing that things are going to happen because they happened before, or catastrophizing that awful things are going to happen. When you recognize the kind of irrational thinking you're doing, you're then in the first position to change that thinking when you catch yourself doing it.
When I think of the things that we can actually manage, because this is one of the big sicknesses of type A, hey, do I have control of this or not? But if we do have control to change, these are the things that we want to talk about because this has impact on our practice. When we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about some of these irrational issues that are in our core beliefs. And remember, you can hop out to our site and look at iuluniversity.com for the best training, education, and sales support when it comes to life insurance for retirement income.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Did you know the average 401k runs out of money just 7 to 8 years into retirement? Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and many other publications have warned of the difficulty of saving with a 401k. But what if there was a way to create tax-free lifetime retirement income with no stock market risk? Good news, there is.
You know, living in fear of the next market dive is not the way I want to live my life.
Why would I go out there and take on risk when I don't need to?
I have a lot less stress knowing I can't lose any more of my retirement savings in the stock market.
Call now to receive your free, no-obligation analysis of what this retirement vehicle could do for you, a comparison to your current retirement plan, and a free video that explains this exciting opportunity. Start planning a retirement you can enjoy instead of worrying about future tax increases and stock market losses. Creating income that will last your entire life is the most important thing you'll ever do. Take control of your future. Call now for your free analysis, comparison, and video.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant with Dr. Jack Singer. And remember, you can go to our chart toppers out on our website, thebiz.tv, and pick out all the things that you'll see other producers choosing and downloading. And we have tons of material out there, great blogs, articles, and actually great pieces that you can use with your consumer or your client. And remember, before moving forward, anything you ever hear on our show, always talk to your tax advisor, or if you're FINRA licensed, your broker-dealer compliance officer. We're addressing the role of your core irrational beliefs. Man, I think I have a lot of them. I need to weed my garden today. Let's talk about one that I don't know if I slip into, but I've noticed I may have a propensity for, and it's called, when I think everybody else and the things around me are horrible, right? I judge them as being not right. I'm right. Their way of living, things that I'm experiencing are wrong. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you do something like that, you're judging everybody as they are compared to you, because you're setting yourself up as what we call a straw man, like everything I do is perfect and anyone who doesn't match up to that is something's missing. So it's either my job to change them or to avoid them, kind of thing. Whereas there's always more than one way to skin a cat, and you don't have to be exactly like other people in order to be successful. And you know, if you're looking at other people and judging yourself in comparison with them, then you're probably not paying a lot of attention to what's going on in your internal dialogue. Now, interesting, Steve, you never cease to amaze me with the phrases you come up with that you don't even know are remarkable. Like you came up with a phrase a few minutes ago of weeding your garden. So the subconscious mind is like a garden that's planted full of flowers when we're a little baby. And what happens as we get older, we start putting weeds into that garden. And those weeds are things like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be good enough unless I'm perfect, or people won't like me unless I do what they want. I mean, these are the kinds of irrational core beliefs that I'll call weeds in your garden. And then you fertilize and water those weeds by continuing to believe them just because they're habits. But we can change any habit. In fact, someone wrote a book once on how to change any habit in 21 days. So in 21 days, if you're conscientious, you can change any thinking habit, including your core beliefs.
Well, that sounds remarkable because you're saying I could have long-standing, ongoing personality traits that are based on irrational feelings.
Right.
And in 21 days, I could have a complete revamp of the way I think.
You could, and it involves giving yourself positive affirmations. You may have to leave notes in your car and when you're brushing your teeth to remind yourself to give yourself positive affirmations. And these affirmations are discounting the negative, irrational thoughts that you used to have or beliefs you used to have. Like, I am okay. I don't have to have every answer from my clients to be okay would be a good one. Or, I'm a good person and I value people and I'm in this business for the right reason. You have to keep reminding yourself of these things. And the other thing is, you know, when we talk about core beliefs, we've talked before about goals, and one of the important things to do in goals is to recognize how you've been sabotaging yourself from actually accomplishing your goals. Maybe someone is very successful and they're a six-figure producer, but they still have not really accomplished their goals that they could because there's a part of sabotage in there, like, I've gone this far, I'm afraid to go any farther because I don't want to blow it. You know, I may be a failure, but right now I can handle this amount. So these are the kinds of irrational thoughts that people go through when they're trying to set goals for themselves.
Well, I think if I'm talking about a 20, you have such a plan, right? A 21-day plan.
Yeah.
Well, we may have to talk to you about that as a giveaway, show giveaway on that. But when we're talking about that, I mean, 3 weeks out of your life to countermand 30 years of living in a thoughts that have been counterproductive.
Right.
3 weeks is not a lot to ask to change a life.
It isn't. If you're conscientious, think about it. You can quit smoking in 3 weeks if you're really conscientious, and this is something you could have maybe have done for 40 years. And you may have told yourself that you can't quit because your body's used to it, but you can do it if you really want to do it. People can do anything they really set their minds to do as long as it's within reason.
What about this external events? You know, you've been talking about that. I've heard you talk about this before, that cause a lot of misery in people and so forth. Talk a little bit about that and how to overcome that.
Yeah, a lot of times, Steve, people believe that it's external events that we have no control over that determines everything, so we might as well give up or procrastinate or not try to work on these things. Like the economy, for example, is an external event that a producer doesn't have any control over. So the thought is, I can't do anything about it, and I'm just going to be miserable, and every emotion I have is triggered by that. But no, we have a choice as to how we're going to interpret external events. We always have a choice as to how we're going to interpret things that happen to us. Events that take place in our lives do not cause our emotions. It's our interpretation of those events that cause the emotions. So for example, let's say I've been invited to give a speech and they told me there's going to be 500 people there. And when I get there, because of weather and people couldn't get into the town and so forth, there's 50 people instead of 500. That's an event, but it's neutral. It doesn't cause an emotion. What causes an emotion is how I interpret that event. So if I was to say to myself, what a waste of my time flying across country to speak to only 50 people, it's going to lead to some negative emotions, irritation, frustration, perhaps anger. But the same event, if I say to myself, wow, this is a great opportunity, it's almost like group therapy. I'll have these people, we can put them all in a circle and we can really get a lot of good things accomplished where normally I can't in such a big audience. I don't have those negative emotions now, yet the event is the same. So the key point here for all of your listeners to remember is that events don't cause our emotions. Our interpretation of the event is what causes the emotion, and we have a choice as to how we're going to interpret things.
Well, when I think about the things you're talking about and trying to put it on a 21-day calendar, when I think about our life, maybe we're living 80, 90 years of mortality, we're talking about 21 days
Absolutely.
out of 80 to 90 years.
Right.
Is it worth our practice and worth our performance and worth our domestic life to change? I think it is. Remember, you can watch this show and all our shows by clicking the red on-demand video button right on our homepage at brokersalliance.com. Well, that's the Buzz on the Biz for today. Get in the zone, the business insurance zone.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.